Hey everyone, I'm Tyler Metcalf, and now it's a film so you don't have to. On this video, we're taking a look at AJ Dybantsa's 25-point game in their 2-point loss to the UConn Huskies from Saturday. Now, Dybantsa finished with 25, 6 rebounds, no assists, 3 turnovers, on 8 of 14 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3, and 7 of 10 from the free throw line. The numbers look good. It was overall a really efficient game, and yet there was a lot of really concerning stuff from Dybantsa in this game, especially in the first half. But then in that final 10 to 14 minutes of the second half, he figured it out. Something flipped, and he got to his spots. He got to the line. He was knocking down tough shots, and he totally took over the game. And when we look at this kind of game with those numbers, and if our first impression walking away is, man, he wasn't that good in that game, and he still has those numbers, that should tell you what kind of player Dybantsa is and can continue to grow into. So today's video, there were some real big inconsistencies on defense. We're not going to look at that. Same with the passing. Those almost feel like they should be their own separate videos. We'll get to that in time. But today, I really want to focus on how Dybantsa's scoring game and shot selection and foul drawing really evolved throughout this game, because he really struggled in the first half. It looked totally different by the end of the game. So we're going to just go chronologically through all of his shots and a handful of the fouls that he drew to get to the line, because there's a whole lot of craft. Let's take a look at the film. Welcome to film school. Let's dive in. So we're just going to start with Dybantsa's first field goal attempt. As you can see, over 5 minutes have passed. He had drawn a couple fouls in transition up to this point, but they didn't interest me. So we're starting out with the first shot attempt, official shot attempt that came over 5 minutes into the game. Unacceptable for BYU and for Dybantsa, because he needs to be more aggressive in these situations, especially when his team's struggling to score. So after he runs off this off-ball screen by Keita, does a really good job of just relocating out here to the wing. Keita rolls into the empty corner. UConn blitzes this. I would love to see in the future Dybantsa just make that bounce pass or just skip pass to Keita right away, because now he's rolling down to the rim with solo ball as the lone rim protector. Love for that decision making to be there immediately. It's not. Okay, whatever. We'll get there. Instead, Dybantsa fakes the pass, gets Stewart off his feet, and that gives him enough room to just get that first step downhill. Stewart does a really good job of staying with him, staying attached, but Dybantsa's lower body strength, his willingness to play through physicality, allows him to just kind of keep pursuing that drive, keep penetrating the lane, and by doing so, he's able to use this Keita dive to then seal off Terrace Reed again, create a little more of a hurdle, a little more of a barrier for Stewart to then yet again get around solo ball, has to relocate out there. He can't just totally leave the corner shooter, which gives, as Dybantsa plants that left foot here, that's enough of a lane for him to snake through. We can see how he really explodes, elongates his stride, plants that right foot, goes through the contact, attacks Stewart's outside shoulder, finishes through the contact. Tough make. First official shot of the game. Things are looking good until they weren't. So here we get early offense in transition, and it's just one speed. It's very lackluster. It's, there's not a whole lot of craft here. There's not a whole lot of physicality. It's like he's going into the shot just expecting to get a whistle. It's like, oh, I'm back home. I'm AJ Dybantsa. I deserve this foul call. And it looks like Reeby gets a little bit of a hand in there. Dybantsa might have a case, but they were letting them play, especially early in this game. And this type of shot from AJ was pretty consistent in the first half, where it's just like, that's really the best you can do. 25 seconds left on the shot clock, and you're wide open at the foul line. I wouldn't have hated him just pulling up here, but again, on the catch, no shot fake, little hesitation, but Reeby was already in the restricted area. Instead, he just attacks downhill, doesn't really lower his shoulder, doesn't create contact, doesn't separate at all. Reeby gets a good contest, no foul call. UConn's going the other way. Here, a little double drag action. Dybantsa, again, Reeby giving him a ton of space. The roll here by, I think that's Boscovich, wouldn't have hated just a nice little lob over there, but Reeby's a 7-footer, high hand. That's not a bad shot for Dybantsa by any means. The process here I don't hate. It's really early in the shot clock, but that's a pretty clean look for anyone. He pulls up, lets it fly, hits back rim, but Boskovic wide open, totally unattended on the roll, is right there for the offensive rebound. So again, I'd love to see Dybantsa working on just a little more of a touch pass here to Boskovic to set it up, but that's not a bad look. Just kind of shoots a flat ball, but Boskovic is right there for the tip in. A few minutes later, empty pick and roll, gets the switch on Karaban, and this is where the foul hunting comes into play. And he wasn't getting any of this in the first half. So right off the bat, process-wise, I like this right off the bat. Empty corner pick and roll. He has this whole baseline to attack down. He's going against Alex Karaban, smart defender, really good college player, but in a 1v1 situation, I'm taking Dybantsa every day of the week here. As he attacks, Dybantsa does a really good job of trying to send Karaban baseline and then getting his momentum leaning that way, and then shifting back towards the middle to attack that high foot, attack against his momentum. Probably should have been a foul here. Dybantsa's trying to do that low sweep through, rip through that guys like KD, James Harden do all the time, where they expose that ball, rip through with their arms high. But college refs weren't giving it in this game. They're college refs. You never know what they're going to reward, and you can tell pretty early they're letting this physicality go. So as Dybantsa comes through here, Reeby comes in and helps, probably catches him on the shoulder again, but Karaban's staying vertical after the initial sweep through, and Dybantsa just kind of throws it up, looking for a foul. Not a great shot, but this is where some of the foul hunting stuff with him can get a little tiresome, because it results in pretty brutal shots like this when he's not getting the whistle. Now, there will be games where he does get this whistle and he gets to the line 20 times a game. He still got 10 free throw attempts, so he ends up figuring it out a little later, but they weren't rewarding that kind of stuff in the first half at all. Again, empty corner pick and roll, and when we talk about foul drawing and that kind of stuff, this is one where he gets rewarded for it. So tries to beat, I believe that's Ross. Baseline here, empty corner pick and roll. Keita goes to set the screen. Terrace Reed shows and blitzes this really early, which immediately sends AJ baseline. AJ does a really good job here of just going early and going quick, because he sees Reed already above the screen. So before Keita even gets set, he's attacking, and he's doing it in a way that's really smart, and something that we'll see throughout the rest of this video is that he's attacking Ross's shoulder. He's not trying to get around him. He's not trying to avoid contact. He's trying to create contact, and a lot of his lines of attack are going straight through that shoulder of his defender, because if they don't move and they try and make contact and bump him off his line, he's going to get the foul call more often than not, just like he did on this one. Transition. This one was weird. I didn't get the hesitancy here at all. He's pushing. I like this advantage for him. He's probably thinking that the defender's trying to set up to take a charge. He had done that a couple times, didn't necessarily get rewarded for it, but the body control, good footwork, plants that left foot, shifts it a little bit, may have gotten away with the travel, but no whistle, no harm, and then just goes straight up into the trees. Well, not trees, but just goes straight up into two defenders. One was able to elevate early and really do a great job of staying vertical. UConn was fantastic with their verticality and discipline on a lot of Dybantsa's head fakes and stuff in the first half. And again, this is where Dybantsa gets a little bit of blinders, just kick it out to Richie Saunders. I know he's struggling to shoot, but you got to imagine those percentages come around eventually. And he just kind of goes into this without a plan. The initial job of avoiding a potential charge here is nice. Maybe mix in a little bit of a Euro instead of just the step through, keep the defenders on their heels a little more, keep it a little more dynamic, but just kind of a sloppy and lazy shot selection there by Dybantsa. Really similar thing here. So he's going to make a couple of really tough mid-range shots like this in just a few minutes and throughout the entire second half, really. And in a vacuum, I don't hate this shot for him, but again, it's really early in the shot clock, and he just doesn't set this up at all. It's, one dribble, bump, and immediately over his shoulder. Now, he gets a pretty clean release just because of how much elevation on his jumper he gets. Because he's 6'9", he has that high release. He doesn't come close. It's a bad shot. And in a vacuum, if there were 5 seconds left on the clock, okay, cool, whatever. But it goes back to that thought process throughout the first half where he was just really lazy and complacent with his shot selection in the first half, struggled with the physicality, and really struggled to create much of anything. He was rushing it. It was like he was pressed, and just the adrenaline was a little too much, and he was rushing stuff. So again, just one dribble, one bump, turns over that shoulder, and Karaban gets a good contest because this is a super easy shot to defend. Karaban's not biting on head fakes. He's staying grounded no matter what, and all he's trying to do is get a hand up on a tough jumper and keep him away from the rim. I wouldn't have hated a Robert Wright kick out here. Wright's not an awesome shooter, but he is 2 of 6 in this game. Wouldn't have hated that, because then, again, Boscovich is pointing for it because he wants it to swing. Instead, Dybantsa settles for this and bails Karaban out, in what should have been a much more difficult shot selection. So that gets us through the first half of the game. Dybantsa had drawn a few fouls, but I believe he was just 1 of 6 in the first half shooting. Unacceptable. Just not good enough, and this game was looking like it was going to be a blowout until the second half happened, and Dybantsa started to turn things around. And just right here, the first one, I love that they went immediately, hey, let's go post up, and bump, explodes. So the difference between this one and that Karaban one that we just saw, and he's in basically the exact same position, other side of the floor, but we see a little more craft, a little more patience, and first off, I love how much he separates there, but as he attacks here, remember what I said about how he lines up his points of attack with that defender's shoulder? He does it here as well. So as he goes into the post, 1 dribble, 2, 3, bump, and we see him attack that left shoulder. By doing that, going towards the outside of the defender, we can see how the defender's leaning, trying to create that contact, trying to keep Dybantsa from his spot. And whenever a defender's leaning that much and getting outside of their frame that much, the refs are going to call this more often than not. That's what they do. Dybantsa does an awesome job separating here. Even without the foul, I love the space creation. You don't love a guy living in the mid-range always. Dybantsa does. But I love that space creation. But by attacking that left shoulder specifically, he puts the defender in such a bad spot to defend him cleanly. Here we see him in an off-ball capacity. Runs off that screen, and now he has this whole area to attack down into. This was something they didn't do for him at all in the first half. In the first half, it was a lot of, all right, get to the elbow, get to the box, here's the ball, go to work. But I love that they put him in a little bit of not a little bit, just put him in an off-ball capacity, runs off this pin down. Once his defender goes through there, Dybantsa has all of this space. He has half of the floor to work with, getting downhill, attacking against his defender's momentum. The defender's in chase and recovery mode. Dybantsa is now able to attack against that. Great job initiating contact to then separate. Probably could have gotten a foul call there. He got hooked a lot in this game. It happens. Also gets bailed out a little bit by, I think his defender stepped on Reed's foot there, but the separation, I know people don't love the mid-range shot. AJ Dybantsa is going to live in the mid-range because he can do stuff like that. First bucket of the second half, and that's when the floodgates started to open. Here, I know early pull-up 3, not always the best shot, but let's look at the situation. They're down 19. They got to start getting points, and Dybantsa's able to step into one wide open in transition, gets a high release, good loft on it, doesn't shoot a flat ball. It's a really nice shot. Here again, early offense, catch, step back. I don't hate this because he had just made one. What was that? Like 30 seconds prior. Let's check the time on that. Yeah, so literally like their next possession, catch. I would have hated him just rising up here, but tries to attack baseline. Karaban gives him that big cushion, steps back, gets a pretty good or pretty clean look off, toes on the line, just rims out. But what I really love here is off that offensive rebound, the ball kicks out, swings, he goes and gets it at the top of the arc, and instead of trying another step back, instead he's aggressive and gets downhill, attacks Karaban, and is able to draw that foul, as we can see down here, because he wasn't complacent. And in the first half, he would have just let this fly or gone bump and pulled up right away. Instead, he attacks to his left, gets Karaban leaning, gets Karaban crossing his feet, and then does a great job of spinning back against Karaban's momentum, attacking that shoulder, attacking against the momentum to try and just survive. Karaban hooks him with that left arm. We can see right there, hooks him with that left arm. Ref spots it. Really perfectly timed spin move by Dybantsa. Doesn't get the shot to fall, but I love that he went from that step back three. They get the offensive rebound, and then instead of settling for that and trying to get everything back with the home run play, he gets aggressive, attacks downhill, and gets the foul. A few minutes later, they're starting to chip away at this lead, down to 16, goes into post-up mode, and this is really similar to that move that we saw earlier, where he didn't get the bucket, but he did get the shooting foul. But one thing, gotta look at the difference, where in the previous one, he did a much better job of attacking that high shoulder. This time, he's just going square into the defender's chest, which allows the defender to stay on platform, stay on balance, and react a lot quicker to AJ. And like, this isn't a good shot. This is really good defense. I know the defender gets called for a foul here, but that is about as tight of a shooting window as you can possibly manufacture. But again, AJ 6'9". He has a high release point. He's taken this type of shot for years now. This is stuff that he practices. This shot for him is very different than if Robert Wright is taking it. For example, no shade at Robert Wright, but you get the point. And in that previous clip where AJ drew the foul and really separated, he did that because he was attacking the defender's shoulder. This time he's attacking the chest, can't separate much, and just really shows off his shot-making capabilities here with this, because this isn't a good shot, but it's not necessarily a bad one for him. A few minutes later, deficit down to 11, and he gets aggressive again. And this is that not being afraid of contact. High pick and roll. He catches his defender trying to go through that screen, denies it, and attacks that right shoulder by being quick, by being decisive, and being direct. Not trying to arc around him, not trying to avoid contact, but instead seeking it out, staying low, securing the ball, and attacking that shoulder to initiate that contact. The defender has no choice but to reach in to try and slow him down, gets caught reaching, and AJ gets rewarded with the foul. Here we see him on the right wing, attacks middle, bump, bump, just really good job in rhythm. And all of these mid-range jumpers from AJ, they've been really direct, where it's wherever he's going, once he gets into the middle of the floor, he's rising up. And that's going to be important in just a few clips here. But I love how in rhythm he is on this catch, attack, gets the defender leaning, shifts his momentum, playing off 2 feet, great elevation again. And like, from a defensive standpoint, there's not much more you can do here. Really high release point. AJ's living in the mid-range, living on these tough jumpers, but that's the type of player he is and will continue to be. And just makes it's just better, or it's just better offense beating good defense. So here we see him on the right wing, pops out for it, and now just goes to work. And again, attacking the outside of the defender's frame. Ross is doing a pretty good job here, and instead of just going straight through his chest, AJ lines up his defender to attack that outside shoulder. Ross can't get there in time. AJ has the strength to go through him, and then the composure to finish the layup plus the foul. But all of those fouls that he's drawing are because he's attacking the outside of his defender's frame. He's not trying to avoid the defender entirely. He's not trying to go through the defender. He's trying to clip the defender's shoulder and arms and vulnerable areas to really highlight the contact that's being initiated and created. So here, we're down to a 9-point game, 3 minutes left. Gets the switch on Karaban. And this is one of the more impressive shots that you'll see from a freshman this year. Because remember what I just said, all of his mid-range jumpers were once he got to the middle of the floor, whether if he was on the left and going right, once he got to the middle, he was going up. When he was on the right going to the left, he went up. Once he got to the middle of the floor, and those tough shots look awesome on their own, but it also sets up stuff like this, where now he's attacking left to right, Karaban sitting on, okay, he's about to pull up here. Really good composure by AJ to initiate the contact, create a little space, potentially an offensive foul. That's a tough freeze frame for him. Shot fake gets Karaban leaning one way. Karaban thinks he's going up, but instead, Dybantsa spins back the other way. Great job keeping his just really impressive footwork. I know there's some of you out there who are like, oh, it's a travel. I don't care. Refs didn't call it. It's not a travel. Shot fake, pivot back, finishes with his offhand, going away, and just look at how much space he covers here. So initial contact at the elbow, just inside the free throw line, pivots back. Really good job showcasing his length. So he started here and is now finishing at the rim with a layup with his offhand. That's some really special scoring craft. And then finally, when you're hot, you're just hot. You're feeling it. And I have no issue with this shot, obviously, because it's 30 seconds left in the game. And as AJ continues to grow as a shooter and scorer, this type of stuff is only going to get more deadly and more efficient because defenders are going under screens with him. They kind of have been for a while. They're going to continue to do so. It's not a ton of space. And again, defender can't get much closer to blocking that, but AJ doesn't need a whole lot of space, especially once he gets hot. There's a really, really night and day difference between the first half and the second half when we look at his scoring game. So where does that leave us with AJ Dybantsa? Because for 3/4 of that game, he was putting up a real stinker. The passing reads weren't consistently there. The defense was erratic. And the shot selection was lazy. It was complacent. It was undisciplined. There was no creativity. He was just out there going through the motions, getting cardio. It was a real disappointment. And then in that final 10 to 15 minutes of the second half, he reverted back to the player that we know him to be. And that's one of the most special and dynamic scorers in the country. At 6'9", with that high shot release, with his physicality, his footwork, his scoring touch, Dybantsa showed that he can take over a game whenever he wants, regardless of who he's playing. This is a very good UConn team. And they showed it for the vast majority of that game until they started tightening up down the stretch. But they started tightening up because they were on the other side of a superstar having a superstar type of moment. So, yeah, I'm going to continue nitpicking a lot of AJ's game because when you're mentioned towards the top of a draft class that some describe as generational, it warrants that extra criticism. But that criticism is never an indictment on who AJ is or can continue to be and grow into as a player because he is special. His tools are special, and the potential is out of this world exciting. But there's always room to improve, and he still needs to do that. So those final 10 minutes were electric. It's some of the best one of the best performances of the year by any prospect in a very condensed period. And we're still walking away from that game where he put up efficient 25 points, being like, man, but he kind of stunk for most of it, right? That should tell you what type of player he is and can continue to be. That's scary in a good way, because AJ just showed us something that he can do whenever he wants, and that is single-handedly take over a game at any point. How many other players in the country do you think truly can do that?